But look at this. What on earth? 13,000 murderers, homicide?
She spoke to 2 members of management, and I'm going to tell you, I bet money that even those 2 members, I feel bad for them because I guarantee you they didn't even want to be there. And she was there for 20 minutes for a photo op. Yeah. That's all she did.
What Kamala Harris has done is unforgivable. It's a crime what she did. It's got to be criminal.
Over 662,000 illegals with criminal histories now released into U.S. communities. That's bigger than the state of Wyoming. And there are some pretty serious criminal offenses here. These are not traffic tickets. We're going to take a look at this document, which was just released to the Honorable Tony Gonzales, a representative out of Texas. And I want to break down what these numbers look like because you're going to see they are horrendous, including homicide, all right, murder. So let's talk about it. But here's the press release. They say back in March, Texas Representative Tony Gonzales sent a letter to Biden and Mayorkas saying, we've got some concerns here that there are some sanctuary cities that are shielding non-citizen illegal aliens from federal law enforcement. And we asked for information from ICE's docket on how they're processing these people and how many potential criminals were actually being released into our communities. And remember, Trump always uses this line, they're sending their worst, they're emptying their jails, they're just sending them up here. And the left says, oh, that's bigotry. Okay, these people are here to just come pick your vegetables, you racist. Well, on Thursday evening, ICE Deputy Director sent data in response to the inquiry that confirms that as of July of this year, 662,000 illegal immigrants on ICE's docket have a criminal history. Woo. Now, we've known for far too long that this is a direct threat to Americans. This is a wake-up call, says Tony Gonzales. Americans deserve to feel safe in their communities, and as an appropriator, someone who gives them money, I will do everything necessary to deport non-citizens with a criminal record. This has to be a priority, and there's a lot of them. So if you click that link, it will open up to this document, and here is what the official response back from our own government looks like. They write, all right, dear Representative, thank you for responding to this letter. U.S. Immigrations and Customs recognizes the importance of its relationship with law enforcement partners to carry out its mission. In recent years, however, some jurisdictions, however, have refused to work with us, including refusal to honor ICE detainer requests. So the sanctuary cities will then take the data, demand that they retain the non-citizen, the illegal, and they don't do it. The sanctuary cities say, we're not holding them for you. Sorry. Even for non-citizens who have been convicted of serious felonies and pose an ongoing threat to public safety. ICE recognizes that some jurisdictions are concerned that cooperating with federal immigration officials will erode trust with immigrant communities. Well, if we tell you that we have criminals here, then they're not going to trust us and communicate with us. So then it's going to be harder for local law enforcement to serve those populations. And I guess what that means is serving the criminals, at least the ones that are embedded in there. However, sanctuary policies can end up shielding dangerous criminals who also victimize those very communities. Do you think those communities want a bunch of murderers running around? Despite the challenges of operating within a broken immigration system, and in the face of an enormous workload and consistently limited funding, more money is all they need, I'm sure. Homeland continues to enforce the law to secure our borders. No, they don't. We are removing and returning record numbers of migrants who are unable to establish a legal basis to remain in the United States, which at this moment is as broad as can be. I think you just download an app, say, I'm being victimized. Help. From mid-May, they say, yeah, come on in. We'll put you in Springfield. From mid-May 2023 through the end of July 2024, DHS removed and returned more than 893 illegals, including more than 138,000 individuals and family units. Now, the majority of all those individuals encountered at the southwest border over the past 3 years have been removed, returned, or expelled. Okay. Now, your letter requests the number of non-citizens illegals on ICE's docket that are being processed that are convicted or charged with a crime. As of July, there were 662,566 aliens with criminal histories on ICE's national docket, which includes those detained by ICE and on the agency's non-detained docket as well. So some of those people are in custody, others are not. Now, of those, 435,000 of the 600,000 are convicted criminals, and 226,000 have pending criminal charges. So almost a full state of Wyoming. Wyoming's about 550,000, 600. Almost are convicted criminals, a full state, and 226,000 of those those have pending charges that they're processing. So please refer to the following chart, which we will. It's important to note that detention determinations are made using a few guidelines. So how do we decide whether we keep somebody in custody or not? First, ICE is bound by the law not to release certain non-citizens from ICE during the pendency of removal proceedings, and notes that most non-citizens who are convicted of homicide are typically not eligible for release from ICE custody. So certain people, they have to keep in jail when they come across. And you would say, oh, like the murderers, obviously? Well, not so fast. The murderers, sometimes they're typically not eligible, but they might be. So sometimes we release the murderers, sometimes we don't. It's a little complicated. And second, right, and they're like, wait, what? They're typically not eligible from release, though. So, okay. Do we have atypical murderers being released? So second, in limited circumstances, when that section does not apply, ICE officers may use their discretion in making custody determinations and release non-citizens with conditions. You know, you promised to come back here, right? Oh yeah, sure. ICE custody determinations are made on a case-by-case basis, and they take into account the individual circumstances, primarily considering risk of flight. Are they going to come back? National security threat and threat to public safety. ICE takes other factors into consideration as well, including whether they've got serious medical conditions, if they are the caregiver for minor children, and other humanitarian considerations. Now let's take a look at this. National docket data for non-citizens sorted by criminality and the most serious charge category. So we've got all the criminal charge types in this first column. We'll look at the various rows. And in the first two, these people are in custody. So on the left side of this red line, they're in custody. On the right, not detained. As you can see here, 400,000 that have criminal convictions right there that are not detained, and 222,000 that are not detained that have pending criminal charges. That's over the entire state of Wyoming, full of criminals who are not citizens who are roaming around the country. That's insane. Now you might say, Rob, are those just like criminal speeding tickets? What's going on here? Who are these people? Well, there was one guy who has an antitrust problem, you know, like friend of Bill Gates or something. I don't know. We've got a bunch of arsonists coming in, not detained, almost 1,000 arsonists running around. A lot of assault, very common assault, over 100,000 assaulters roaming around the country. Burglars, about 17,000 burglars. Oh, sex offenders, commercialized sex offenders, so they're officially transporting people, all the things. 2,200 plus 1,700. We're looking at 4,000 sex offenders coming in. How about property damage? Oh yeah, lots of those. And dangerous drugs, lots of those. So we've got about 70,000 dangerous drug criminals now imported into the country. Family offenses, embezzlement, extortion, flight, fleeing, forgery, fraudulent activities, 15,000 of those who've been convicted. Other general crimes. But look at this. What on earth? 13,000 murderers, homicide? I guess those could be negligent homicides, not necessarily murder, but 13,000 people convicted of homicide, free, roaming around the country. 1,800 people have been charged with murder, homicide, the elimination of another human, and they're free, roaming around. So I'd like to know from anybody who's a lefty, who thinks that this is acceptable, you're just, well, it's just incidental, it's just part of the system, and there needs to be, like, everybody commits crimes, and every portion of immigration, every portion is going to have an element of criminality to it. They're not detained in the country. There's 15,000, 14,000 people coming in who are convicted or pending homicide cases. These are on the books. Immigration offenses, basically all of them. Invasion of privacy, kidnapping. Wow. 2,500 plus 850 kidnappers roaming around the country. Larceny, robbery, sexual assault. The grapists are running around here. Trump said that. And I guess they're okay with that. All the people on the left, Kamala, saying the wall is racist and all of those things. It's coming into our communities, all of ours. Stolen properties, stolen vehicles, trafficking offenses. Okay, so traffic offenses, right? So, so driving on a suspended license, reckless driving, that's your DUIs. They're all in there. 70,000 of those. That's a lot. And then weapons offenses. Very curious. So you add it all up and you've got 600,000 plus that are not detained. And just compare and contrast those numbers with those that are actually detained. They can't detain them. There's nowhere to put them. That's why they should remain in Mexico. That's why you don't let them come across the border, because you can't vet them for this criminality. It's lunacy. So convicted criminals, look, there's like 14,000 people who have actually been held. 14,000 people have been held compared to the 600,000 criminals that have been released. And let's look at the homicides. Oh, so these must be like the really bad ones. So they've got just about 320, give or take, homicide murderers that they're keeping in custody, but they're letting out 15,000 other ones. You understand the size of that number? What size of that number that is? Do you understand how much we invest as citizens in our police force, in our law enforcement to deal with crime that's already here? Not importing this. And these numbers are shocking. I mean, I've been in Arizona my whole life, and we see it. Now, you also requested ICE's current detention capacity. Under Homeland Appropriations Bill, ICE is funded for 41,000 beds. They don't have the space through the rest of the year, with an increase in 34,000 in 2023. It's nothing. They're going to have, 70,000 beds, and they've got 600,000 criminals? More than that, right? Add all of that up. It's not even a drop in the bucket, right? They can't possibly. The numbers just don't jibe. Now, regarding the number of declined detainers since fiscal year 2021, from October 1 through 24, ICE lifted 24,000 detainers. Of those, 23,000 were declined by the state and local law enforcement agencies. 1,200 were lifted due to insufficient notice to ICE. The ERO issued 2,800 detainers that were also declined by local law enforcement agencies, where the subject of the detainer was then picked up later. Okay, so even the local cops were like, we're not giving them over to you at ICE because of the local law enforcement and DAs. Now, thank you again for your letter, says Patrick. Should you wish to discuss this matter further, please don't contact us, or please do not hesitate to contact us. They also say ICE may lift a detainer at any time after it has been issued. The lifting of a detainer is based on the totality of the case, and ICE may lodge another detainer at a later date if appropriate. Now, the circumstances under which ICE may lift a detainer are unlimited. However, these circumstances may include, but are not limited to, criminal conviction and criminal charges. The non-citizen has lawful status to remain in the United States, health-related concerns, etc. All right, so we'll keep you or not copied to a bunch of judges, and the numbers are just shocking, right? It's a full-on criminal invasion. And the DOJ, they're more interested in prosecuting Alabama and suing Alabama for trying to remove illegals from their voter rolls. So we covered this story. Alabama did remove a bunch of illegal aliens from their rolls, and now the Biden-Harris DOJ is suing them for violating federal law and their prohibition on removing voters within 90 days of an election. So this is curious because the DOJ has suddenly learned and remembered, they don't want stuff happening within 90 days of an election unless it's Jack Smith filing a giant dossier against Trump. Then they're okay with that. So they said that, yeah, we're suing Alabama because they're trying to remove voters from its election rolls too close to the November 5th general election. The right to vote is one of the most sacred rights in our democracy, they said, especially for illegal aliens. As election day approaches, it's critical that Alabama redress voter confusion. So let the illegals vote. The NVRA is known as the quiet period provision. You can't change anything. They changed it 84 days out. And so it's an important protection for voters. It's like a joke because there's all sorts of other decisions, including this one, where they're keeping Kennedy on the ballot, right? So we're having all of these changes now to the ballots and the elections and the voter rolls and all sorts of stuff. So Wisconsin Supreme Court is going to keep Kennedy on the ballot, and nobody's looking at that like that's election interference, even though we know what they're doing. So the law is just being manipulated all over the place. The DOJ is now suing Alabama. They want illegals to vote. They're much more interested in suing the people who are trying to clean up the rolls than the people who are trying to pervert the rolls. And so they filed this lawsuit, and they don't want distrust among eligible voters accused of being non-citizens. See how that works? So Harris is responsible for that. Then she pretends like she cares about the border, even though she's left the border wide open. She showed up, went down to the border in Arizona, and was palling around with some Border Patrol folks. Here's what that looked like on the scene. She's ignored it for a long time. She was clearly in charge of it. And I'd like to know, let's say maybe she wasn't officially a border czar, like she didn't get in a title, like in a little thing that you put on the name tag on the front of your desk. She didn't do that, no. But she went down there, she gave a speech, she was going to address the root causes and all this crap. Was she successful at that? So let's say that she wasn't in charge of the border, which she was. But if she wasn't, for the little Venn diagram carve out that she was responsible for, how was her performance on that? Was it any good or no? I think the answer was no, because the border is still a disaster. In fact, it's so bad that she has to go down there because her campaign is floundering because she wrecked the border. border. And there is a lot of video evidence of her saying the border wall was racist and she's going to defund the wall and not one penny and all that stuff. Then she goes down there to play games. Now, this gentleman was also down there, and he says the whole thing was basically a joke. He's National Border Patrol Counsel. Art Del Cueto says she was down there for like 20 minutes.
With President Trump, when he actually went to the border, to areas that is, notorious for drug smuggling and human smuggling. He stood there. He spoke to the agents. He's been speaking to the boots on the ground for over 8 years. He's spoken to them, asking what's going on. He's gone through the National Border Patrol Council numerous times. He stood there for over an hour in over 100-degree heat with victims of families from illegal aliens, and he spoke to reporters. Vice President Harris went down there, and she spoke to 2 members of management. She didn't speak to agents. She spoke to 2 members of management. And I'm going to tell you, I bet money that even those 2 members, I feel bad for them because I guarantee you they didn't even want to be there. But she spoke to these 2 members of management, and she was there for 20 minutes for a photo op. Yeah. That's all she did. President Trump actually cares, and he's actually gone down there and met with boots on the ground, and he's done it multiple times for long times at all, every single time he's been there. This is just nothing but a complete photo op. That's all it is. It's her Hail Mary before the election.
Yeah, it's weird that she went to go take pictures by the wall that she said was racist and so terrible. What is she doing there? Is she telling them to take this down? I mean, that area looks pretty secure. Probably hard to get through there. If this looks so good, why don't they just continue that all throughout the rest of the border? Is that what she's talking about? I doubt it. And the Border Patrol also were not happy with her. We saw that this union, the Border Patrol union, NBPC, has been dunking on her. Fact check on the Harris speech in Douglas is saying today, VP Harris claimed that she played a role in increasing Border Patrol agent overtime pay. This couldn't be further from the truth. As with all things border related, she was nowhere to be found when we needed her, when she was in charge. VP Harris asserted that in Arizona that the Border Patrol needed more resources. Say we have apprehended over 8 million illegal immigrants over the last 4 years, and now you realize we need more help 38 days before the election? Says VP Harris has ignored the border problem she created for over 3 years. She goes down there for 20 minutes for a photo op and decides to repeat some of the things that we have said before. But again, where has she been for the last 3.5 years? Nowhere. Just watching the border burn so that they could import new voters. Here is another Arizona sheriff, and this is what he had to say about this photo op.
Why we talk about it so much, and this is why this is the #1 issue for voters. This is exactly why Kamala Harris is trying to do damage control. After 3.5 years of being the person in charge, she now understands she has to do something about it. This is 100% political. I'm glad she's going. We've been asking her to come for 3.5 years, but this is political, and I think she's a day late and a dollar short, and the American people should hold this administration accountable for their failure, because they truly have put American lives at risk every day with their failure to secure the border.
They're doing that. I mean, they've got 15,000 murderers not detained running around the country like it's not even a problem. It's okay. Well, I'm not going to murder anyone again, and we need the population or something, whatever their justifications are for it. Now, Mike Johnson is out here trying to jump into the argument saying that the Harris administration intentionally undermined America's border 64 times. And he put together a little montage here, you can see, of all the executive orders. President Biden terminated the national emergency at the southern border. Proclamation. Boom, there's one. President Biden revoked Trump-era executive order that was designed to ensure that there was meaningful enforcement. Revoke that one. The Biden administration announced a 100-day moratorium on deportations. Here's another one. 42, terminated the use of Title 42 expulsion authority. The list goes on and on. This is all they've done is wreck the border. Then they come back out and they say, well, we are now serious about this and it's Trump's fault because they didn't pass that stupid bill that codified illegal immigration, which nobody wanted except Mitch McConnell and Langford. So the battle at the border continues. Now we're watching what appear to be reports. This came over from Oversight Project, the Heritage Foundation, and Real Muckraker took this one and says that they went to Phoenix, Arizona, and they're doing interviews with folks. And in a man on the street segment, they're showing us that there are illegals who are saying, we're going to vote, and we're going to vote for Kamala right here in Arizona, an important swing state that's already been rigged before.
Just out of curiosity, are you registered to vote?
Yes, we've already registered.
Are you a citizen?
No.
Are you a citizen? No, I'm waiting for my residency right now. And do you plan to vote this year? Yes. Who do you prefer right now, Kamala or Trump? Or Trump? No, Kamala. Have you been registered? Yes. Are you a citizen or not? And would you vote for Kamala? Well, yeah.
Arizona has recently become the center of election integrity concerns. It was the most closely contested state during the 2020 presidential election, decided by a margin of less than 11,000 votes.
Rigged.
The razor-thin margin of victory in 2020 led to intense scrutiny of election integrity measures in the state. The primary concern is that non-citizens could be registering to vote and participating in American elections. However, the mainstream media continues to minimize the issue. The Washington Post said that the issue of non-citizens voting was dishonest. Rolling Stone claimed that the issue was non-existent, and NPR assured its audience that the issue is a myth.
Yeah.
The stakes in the 2024 presidential election.
Yeah, what we're seeing with our own eyes is just a conspiracy theory. And as we learned from an ex-CIA lawyer called Joseph B. Sweeney, it's even worse than we think. And he mentioned that there is a propaganda cluster bomb effect that goes into play when the media gets involved. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with this illegal alien voting situation, because obviously they're on the rolls, they're voting. The DOJ is suing Alabama to maintain that status quo. And the reason is because they want to win the election. Here was an interesting infographic clipped over from Spencer, shared this one saying, the New American Voters Project tracks demographics of key swing states as it seeks to build, quote, a new American majority. Now here's how they could swing the election towards the Democrats. Demographics of newly naturalized citizens in Arizona, plus 62,000. Since the last election, 62,000 voting age adults have become newly naturalized citizens in Arizona. We've got 25,000 people from Mexico, Philippines, Iraq, India, Vietnam, Canada, Syria, Cuba, Congo, UK. Of the citizens, 56% are female, 27% are male. And so they're just importing people from their own document. They say with Arizona, while newly naturalized citizens have large numbers in states like California and New York, the power of the voting bloc is also visible in other states. Figure 10 shows the 10 most politically important states based on the New American Voter Impact Model. The data make clear that the New American voters can have a decisive impact in the midterms, right? So let's make them citizens. Shoot! Including newly naturalized citizens from India, Mexico, Vietnam, and Georgia. Those from Mexico and Arizona. Those from Mexico and Nevada, all swing states. The table A8 calculates how the 10 most politically impactful states are broken down by region of birth. They're trying to shift the whole demographic situation of the country. Biden beat Trump by a meager 11,000 votes in 2020, but then they imported 62,000 people who were non-citizens and made them citizens. And we talked about this before. Well, if you have a problem with illegal aliens, we'll just make them all citizens, like immediately, and then you'll have to deal with it. Well, what are you going to say? Now the citizens can't vote, right? You can't say that. So the same trend plays out in Georgia. Same thing, just trying to pad the numbers, and it's all by design. So we're just watching it happen in real time, and our useless politicians are doing nothing about it. You may have seen this clip clipped over from Charlie Kirk. You've also got apparently non-citizens now becoming police officers so that they can prosecute you and investigate you for breaking the law.
The Minneapolis Police Department swore in new officers.
And that includes its first ever female Somali officer.
Wow, historic.
Ben Henry was there and shares what she and other recruits hope to accomplish. Lots of hope there tonight, Ben.
There is. The department now has its first ever Somali woman officer and permanent resident, which is a non-citizen who's lived in the community since she was a child. Lindsay, you said it. One word that was used a lot tonight, hope. Mayor Jacob Fry says
Hope.
he sees
Oh,
and
it's so
feels the
beautiful.
department building back up, not just in numbers, but in culture.
Yeah.
The Minneapolis Police Department swore in.
Yeah, so non-citizens will now be arresting you for breaking the law. And she's got legal status and legal residency and all that stuff. And we're asking ourselves, what's the next line? Maybe just bring in somebody who just comes right across the border and they can be a police officer and prosecute you too in America. Now, Trump's team is out saying, we told you so. We said that there were criminals coming in all over the place. And here they are. Here's Carolyn Levitt.
Well, once again, Trace, President Trump has been proven right. These numbers today show what he has been sounding the alarm for years now. He has been saying that countries around this world are sending their worst, emptying their prisons, emptying their jails, sending murderers and rapists to our country. The media has mocked him for it, Kamala, and the Democrats have said he's lying, but these numbers, again, prove that he is right. Kamala Harris has thrown the sovereignty of our great country under the bus. For these numbers alone, for what she has done at the border alone, it is disqualifying for her to receive a promotion and be president of the United States. The number one priority of a president is to protect your citizens, to keep your borders secure, to protect your homeland. Kamala Harris has failed to do that over the past 4 years, and she has the audacity to go to the border today with a straight face and look those brave Border Patrol members in the eyes and lie to the American people saying she wants more security. That's a whole load of crap. Look at her record over the past 4 years and throughout her entire career.
It's been a disaster. Everybody knows that. We'll see if this little event to the border is sufficient to satiate people's concerns. But Trump had a great line here, says what Kamala Harris has done is unforgivable. She has violated our own sovereignty, sold us out.
Millions and millions of people, 21 million plus, have been dumped into the United States, and many of them are murderers. Many of them are horrible criminals. What Kamala Harris has done is unforgivable. It's a crime, what she did. It's got to be criminal. There's no greater act of disloyalty than to extinguish the sovereignty of your own nation, and that's what she's done. She's ruined our nation.
Right, destroyed the borders, weaponized the DOJ, totally exploited the people for big pharma, big ag, big defense, more global wars, and the left champions her on.